this will be maybe something you've heard already, but um, inshallah, I want everyone to be able to, after this class and maybe the class afterwards, everyone to be able to summarize the argument from contingency and to use it practically, right? So whatever
Something
thing
you've
that you're
heard
faced with,
already, but
whoops,
um, inshallah,
so whatever situation you're faced with, in terms of an argumentation or even anything in daily life that you can apply the principle of contingency, right, to it, and you can always see like how this concept can apply to basically everything in our lives. Okay, so let's begin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, so before we talk about the argument from contingency, um, we have to ask ourselves, why does the universe exist? Where did the universe come from? Okay, we're gonna first look at the universe, then we're gonna look at something mundane like our teacup, okay? Something mundane like a teacup, or even yourself, right? I mean, just you existing at this moment. So we're gonna make that progression, inshallah. So there's only five possibilities for the existence of the universe. There can't be a sixth, okay? So either you say all of this existence, the totality of this existence, that it came from nothing, okay? So it wasn't there at one point, and then it came. And it came without a creator. So that's possibility number one. Number two, you say, let's keep this the last possibility, right? Number two, you say that okay, it came from nothing, and now it's here, and it's because of the universe itself. Okay? The universe created itself. Number three, you say that it's always been here. The universe has always been here. It's necessary. It's always been here. Things have been cyclical, and this is actually what most of the intellectuals of the world believed for the longest time. Okay, in human history, from the Greeks all the way to the present day, to like the 1970s, and because this seems, for those who wants to deny God, this is the next logical possibility, right? But even the people that believed in God believed in this. Number four, okay, that the universe exists eternally. Um, and people even thought the planets were eternal. Okay, the planets, because at that time you didn't have telescopes to see these objects. It's only, during the Enlightenment when we could actually, the telescope was invented and you can actually see what these planets were, that they weren't actually heavenly beings. But people actually thought that these were heavenly beings, right? And number five, that the universe exists out of a random event. Okay? So just there's no rhyme or reason or meaning to why the universe popped into existence. You'll hear many scientists talk about this today, that, the quantum world or whatever it is, it's highly random, it's highly, things can pop in and out, and it's not a big deal. So the universe is like one of these events. Okay? So number one, can something come from nothing? Okay, it wasn't there before, and now it came, and it comes without a creator. Can that happen? Why can't that happen? Okay, we say that it's illogical, but why can't that happen? So let's look at why. Oops. One of the fundamental principles, not just of logic, but of Islamic civilization, and it's something called رجحان الشيء على غيره بلا مرجح مستحيل. Okay? رجحان الشيء. For something to be preferred over something else. For one choice to be preferred over another choice. بلا مرجح, without anything preferring it, right? مستحيل. It's impossible. It's impossible. Logically impossible. And so when you say that something, okay, it wasn't there before, it did not exist, and now it exists, okay, which tells us that the thing in question that you're talking about, it has two possibilities. What are those two possibilities for its state of being? When you're saying that it didn't exist before, now it exists. So at the very least, there are two possibilities for its state of being. What are those two possibilities? Anyone? The two possibilities for this thing that we're talking about is that it could exist or it could not exist, right? So let's say teacup. It could exist or it could not exist. Was there a certain point where the teacup didn't exist? Yes. Is there a certain point at which the teacup exists now? Yes. Right? Same thing with the universe. Was there a certain point, let's say the universe isn't eternal. I mean, there are other proofs for it. We're gonna get into that, inshallah. But let's say the universe came into existence, okay? Let's say the universe came into existence. Let's say any type of limited thing came into existence. It didn't exist before, now it exists. At the very least, there are two possibilities. Okay, let's forget about what we're talking about. It could be anything. As soon as you admit that it came into existence, there are two things that we can say about this object that we're talking about. That it has the possibility of not existing, okay? And it has the possibility of existing. So there are two different possibilities. Now, for one of those possibilities to be preferred over the other, there has to be something or someone making that choice. Okay? So, for example, for us, um, let me just show you a graphic here, right? Let me just show you a graphic. Imagine a scale, okay? Imagine a scale. Do you guys see this on the screen?
Hmm. Yeah. Hmm.
So imagine a scale, okay? Now, by default, okay, this is actually not accurate. It should be towards non-existence, right? But let's say both of them are possible. So both of them are possible. So let's take Faraz. Faraz as a object, he has two possibilities. He can either exist or not exist. Okay? So, but what do we know? We're interacting with Faraz. So what do we know? Does he exist or not exist? Which one?
I exist.
He exists. Okay? So now the question is, he has two possibilities. He can either exist or not exist. So who is the thing or what is the thing that preferred this possibility over that possibility? This is the essential question. Okay? And no matter how much science you do or whatever you do, this question can always be asked. Always. So, what is the cause or who is the preferrer that preferred that this exists, that he exists and not that he not exist? Okay? And because if there was no preferrer, it would just be like this. By default, Faraz would not exist. By default. The default of things is that they don't exist. So someone has to tip the scale in the favor of existence. Okay? So this is the principle that we're talking about. For something to be preferred over another thing without a preferrer is impossible. رجحان الشيء بلا مرجح مستحيل. رجحان, right? رجحان الشيء بلا مرجح مستحيل. So as soon as something comes from non-existence, it didn't exist before, and now it exists, we must always ask the question, well, there are two possibilities right away. We know about this thing that it's okay logically if it didn't exist right away, right? There's a teacup that never existed, and now it exists, right? Now it exists. Made in a factory somewhere, whatever it may be, different design. Now it exists. So the fact that it didn't exist before tells us it's okay if this thing didn't exist. There's no logical contradiction. It's completely fine. You know, the universe could have gone on 60 billion years more, right? Or everything could have been ended and Judgment Day began, and this didn't need to exist. True or false, right? The same thing with Faraz. Um, Is there something necessary about Faraz that he had to exist? I mean, he came to into existence at a specific time in history, right? Which is what we call his age. So right away we have to ask, what is the thing preferring Faraz's existence over his non-existence? And now for us, we're gonna say that, okay, the cause of uh, that is preferring Faraz's existence over his non-existence is his parents. Okay? That this is the next logical thing that most people would go to, right? That it's his parents who are doing this. That they are the ones who preferred his non-existence, his preferred his existence over his non-existence. Now, what's the issue with this explanation?
Assalamualaikum. I would say like one, they not everything was in their control. Like they could give like the DNA signature and whatnot. All the DNA was taken from them, but they have no control over bringing a child into this world or not. Right? There's so many
Mhm.
variables that were Allah's in control. And second, I don't know if this point matters, but even if a child was brought, it would not have been for us, or it could have been any other child, and not for us specifically. So the parents didn't have control over that either. So so it's like the individual being of Faraz was only brought into creation with Allah and not like, yeah.
Very, very good. So he makes a very good point. The parents being the cause of his existence, preferring his existence over non-existence, there's a lot of problems with this. The biggest problem is that Ismail said that, he they gave them his DNA, their DNA. They didn't do anything, right? They have no idea how the DNA works. They have no idea how to give babies DNA, right? They have no idea Faraz is the baby that was gonna come. They didn't even know what to name him, okay? So uh, if we are to say that they're the ones who preferred his existence over non-existence, what we're saying is they can give him existence because you can't decide someone's existence if you don't have the power to give existence, right? فاقد الشيء لا يعطيه. This is a principle that something that does not have something cannot give it out. Okay? So, whatever is preferring Faraz's existence over non-existence, or this teacup's existence over non-existence, must have the ability to give existence. It must have the ability to give existence. And when someone has the ability or something has the ability to give existence, it has to have it completely. You can't say, well, it doesn't really have the ability to give existence, but it has it like 2%, or it has it like 5%. Okay? It has it like 10%. That doesn't work. Okay? It has to have complete control over existence to give it and to take it away. So we have to ask ourselves, okay, maybe Faraz's parents don't have that ability. Maybe Faraz's grandparents have that ability. Okay? Or and then you keep going back. Or maybe humanity as a whole. Humanity as a whole has this ability to grant existence. But there's a problem with this. What's the problem? We can't say that humanity as a whole has the power to grant existence to itself, right? We get into that problem. What if you say what prefers Faraz's existence over non-existence are the cells in his body? What about that? How would you respond to that?
Well, wouldn't that be random? Like, where's the intellectual design? Like the cells have no, um, yeah, like the cells could not design the body or the creation.
But follow the thread that you were talking about before with his parents. Why wouldn't the cells explain his existence here?
Yeah, because they're not the cause. Like they they make up the body, but they 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 could not have initiated the creation of the specific
Good, good,
individual named for us.
good. So, uh, the cells themselves, the same objection that we have for us as parents, or the same one we have for the cells, or the same ones we have for the atoms. How, if we look at an individual cell, okay, or even cells collectively, do we find within it the qualities of giving existence and non-existence? Do we actually find those qualities? And the answer is no. In fact, those cells, just like for us as parents, they didn't exist at one time. And now they're existing. You see? In fact, they have all of the signs of contingency. This is what we mean by contingency, that they seem dependent for their existence. They're dependent, right? They have all those signs. What is that? What is the biggest sign? They didn't exist at one point, now they do. Okay? Now they do. So they need themselves to explain their own existence. So how can they give existence to Faraz? You get my point? فاقد الشيء لا يعطيه. That's something that does not have something essentially with itself, he cannot give it out. So if we keep going, trying to find an explanation for Faraz's existence. We can either look at his parents, we can either go up or down, right? We can go inside Faraz or we can go outside Faraz, right? Things outside of him. That his parents, okay, it weren't his parents, maybe his grandparents, maybe his grandparents, right? We keep going like this, trying to find some type of cause for Faraz. Okay? And every single cause that we find is itself contingent, is itself, right? Is itself contingent. And what does it mean? It means that it's been specified at a specific location. And let me go back to the slides, right? That it's been specified to exist at a specific time, right? It's consisting of a specified amount of matter, okay? Like, for example, the matter in my body, like, why did I have to be 5'9"? I could have been 6 foot. I could have been 5'8". I could have been 6'1". I could have been 5'7". So the determination of the matter in my body, okay? And now every single day my cells change. My cells are changing. Yes? Time is affecting me. I was born in this specific era versus another era, right? I'm in this location versus another location. All of these things are choices. They are choices. So remember the principle we talked about before. For something to be preferred over another without a preferrer is impossible. رجحان الشيء بلا مرجح مستحيل. So the question is, these are all possibilities related to me, right? As I'm sitting here right now, forget about the past. As I'm sitting here right now, there are infinite number of possibilities. Okay? And the question is, who or what thing determined this specific set of possibilities at this moment? Okay? What determined this specific set of possibilities at this exact moment? And we just said, can it be my parents? And first of all, my parents aren't even here. They're not here, right? I'm talking about at this specific moment who's determining these possibilities. Okay? Can it be my atoms? And you look at the atoms and they're exactly dependent in the same way. Okay? Can it be my cells? Same thing. It's dependent in the exact same way, right? Can it be air, water? Same thing. All of these things have a dependency in the exact same way. They're at a specific location, they're at a specific time, they have a specific amount of matter, and they're undergoing change. So they need an explanation for their own existence. You see what the problem is? And so we can keep going like this, and we have two big problems. If we say that this chain, okay, this chain of dependency, I get my existence from my parents. Let's just say that you say that. I get my existence from my parents, who got them from my parents, who got them, all the way back to the dinosaurs, to the aliens, to you just keep going back into an infinite chain. We end up with two very problematic, illogical possibilities. Okay? If you say that everything in the universe is contingent, everything is contingent, just like me, right? I'm specified at a specific place, specific time, specific amount of matter. Just like this, everything else in the universe is contingent. You get into two illogical conclusions. Number one is infinite regress. Tasalsul. Okay? Tasalsul, infinite regress. And I hope you guys use these Arabic words, okay? Because I mean, first of all, they're cool, and second of all, they're giving you like new terminology, right? And you're using the terminology of your faith, of your tradition. Okay, so that's why I like using these words. I think they're really cool, and they do a better job of explaining the concept as well. Okay, and you have to understand a lot of I guess Muslim identity it comes from the terminology that we're using. Okay, so if we use the terminology of our tradition, then you will get that sense of identity. Okay, so try to use these Arabic words, inshallah. So, impossibility number one, you have infinite regress, tasalsul. Okay? If my existence, okay, my parents caused my existence, let's say, and then their parents caused their existence, but they don't have existence essentially. They don't have it essentially. So you have this chain. You have this chain. Let me go back to the, I want to hide the necessary part. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay. So you have this chain of dependence. Actually, this should be the other. No, no, this is fine. You have this chain of dependence. Okay, so let's say that this is you. This is you. But you don't have existence essentially. You got it from somewhere else. This is your parents. But they don't have existence essentially. They got it from somewhere else. These are your grandparents. They don't have existence essentially. They got it from somewhere else. Okay? I mean, they clearly can't give existence, so something existence is coming from somewhere. Okay, coming out of nothing, it's coming from somewhere. Okay, and you might say, oh, but it's not really me, it's my cells, and well, all of those things fall under the same issue. Okay, all of those things fall under the same issue. They're all contingent. Every part of you is contingent, or else they could have been something else. Yes, they're all dependent. So again, this is your great grandparents, right? And then we just keep going like this, okay? Do you think that this chain right here, it could go on for infinity?
No.
What if it did go on for infinity? Let's say it did. What would happen? What would be the issue? You're
Well,
trying
like
to find, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, what's the beginning? There has to be a beginning.
Right, right. But the big problem here is we're looking for like which part of this chain gives us existence. Right? This is the big problem. There's no existence to be found here. There's no power of giving existence to be found in this whole chain. So if this goes on forever like this, none of these elements, okay, none of these people, none of these contingent objects, okay, have the power to give existence. So if this was infinite, what would be the problem? What would happen to you? None of these things before you have the ability to give you existence. So this is infinite. Let's just let's just say that you're correct. What would happen to you? Anyone? So we're asking how you can exist, okay? But you don't have the power to give existence. The thing before you doesn't have the power. The thing before you doesn't have the power. And we just keep on going like this to infinity. There's not a single thing inside this chain that has the power to give existence. So what does that entail? That you are not what?
Sustainable.
You wouldn't exist. Good. Who said sustainable? But yeah, you're correct as well. Both. Your existence could not be sustained, number one. Number two, you would not exist. Good. You would not exist. Okay? You cannot exist because there's nothing in this chain that has the power to give you existence. So how are you existing? You would not exist. This is why we say that التسلسل يفضى إلى فراغ الوجود. That belief in tasalsul, admitting that there is an infinite regress, okay, is a belief, is an idea that leads to the negating of existence. Okay? التسلسل equals negation of existence. All right? So, what is the only way out of this problem? The only way, actually, let me get to the second problem. I'm getting ahead of myself. Everyone clear on what the issue here is? If we say that there's a infinite chain here, give me a thumbs up.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Hold
All
on,
right.
hold on.
Good.
What's that shit? Um,
Yeah, go ahead.
so you're saying that you couldn't you couldn't exist infinitely because there's nothing before it, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So
So,
I mean, so
yeah, go ahead.
so it's just I mean, so it couldn't it couldn't last infinitely anyway then.
Yes, exactly, exactly. But I'm saying grant the possibility that it could, right? Given the possibility, like let's just say, okay, yes, I believe you that there are these infinite number of contingent things. Okay? Even then, you would get into a logical contradiction because you're saying all of these things rely for their existence on the thing before because they don't have the ability to sustain their own existence, essentially. But then if we actually look at this chain, there's not a single thing in here that has the ability to sustain its own existence, right? So how is any of these things existing? None of them. Forget the first one, none of them would exist. None of them. Okay? Just like for example, you put, if I put zero, 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 and I just put this towards infinity. Would this number mean anything?
Hope.
No. What if I put a 1 at the front? Now suddenly it means
Yes.
something. So all of these zeros, they suddenly immediately get a value because of this 1. Because of this 1 at the front. I mean, this is just a linguistic example, right? But do you guys get the point? That no matter how many zeros I keep piling up, it would not lead to a value. But as soon as I put something with a value at the front, okay, everything else gets value. Is the exact same thing here. All right.
Yeah, makes sense. That's for
And
clarification.
there's another example that I like to give. So let's say um, there's a person holding on to the leg. I mean, this is really bad drawing, but just bear with me here. Okay. There's a person holding on to the leg of another person. They're on top of a cliff. Okay? There's a person holding on to so you only see the first person. You only see the first person down here dangling. Okay? You only see them dangling here, right here. All right? You don't know about anything that's going up here. Now, you see them dangling from the cliff. You see that they're holding on to somebody's leg. All right? You don't see what's at the top. What is the immediate conclusion you have to come to? That this chain is what?
It ends somewhere.
It has to end somewhere, right? There has to be somebody with superhuman, grip strength, whatever it may be, um, Superman, on the top of the cliff who's holding onto the cliff, or something is holding them up. If we keep adding people here infinitely, if we keep adding people here infinitely, would that explain this chain here?
No.
It would not. It would not. Okay? So this is what we mean. That person at the top, he is holding up all of these people. All of these people. Okay? And making the top infinite, it does not do anything. It does not do anything. In fact, even if they were infinite, they would all fall down to their death if there was nothing at the top holding them up. Same thing, same thing. Okay? So this is the problem with at-tasalsul, with infinite regress. The second problem that we get if we say that, that every single thing in the universe is contingent, just like you and me, and it is dependent on everything else, um, is what we call circular reasoning, ad-dawr, circular reasoning. Okay? And let me show you how it leads to circular reasoning. Um,
I had a question while you draw that. So how do like people argue about evolution and
yeah, yeah,
oh
yeah.
like Big Bang and stuff? Are
Yeah.
we going like does that fall into this or is that something that we explain in a
Yeah, so
different way?
let's apply that. Let's apply that. Let's apply it to evolution. Okay? So what is the main theory of evolution? Remember, use the lens of contingency to look at evolution now. It's a very good question, right? Use the lens of
Hmm.
contingency, of dependency, things being dependent. There are multiple possibilities being possible, right? And there has to be a preferer in order to choose one possibility over the other. So let's look at evolution. So what's the main idea behind evolution? That things evolve over time. Yes, I mean nobody
Right.
can deny that. That's pretty common sense. Things evolve over time. Here's a better one. Things adapt to their environment. So you
Hmm.
place a species in an environment and it adapts to their environment. Now, my question to you is, does that happen essentially, necessarily? I mean, why should things adapt to their environment? Again, contingency. Who decided that things should adapt to their environment? We could picture a world where things don't adapt to their environment, that they just die out. In fact, most of the planets in the universe are like this. Nothing adapts in their environment. Yeah?
Yeah.
So we have infinite possibilities of how things should adapt to their environment. My question to you is, who chose this possibility over another one? Right?
Yeah.
That's the question. Like, why should it be that a fish turns into a frog in this specific environment? Why couldn't it have been that a fish turns into a tree? I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but is this a logical possibility? I mean, we see movies and things all the time, right?
Right.
That's a world that could exist. So the question is, why in our world does this happen? I'm not saying evolution is correct or whatever, but I'm just saying
Hmm.
let's accept what you're saying. Let's accept evolution with everything. Okay? My
Hmm.
question is, does do things intrinsically have the power to make these changes, or are they dependent? This is the question. And if you look through the lens of dependency, all of these ideas they become very clear. There has to be a type of dependence. This is why some early Muslim scientists, they had similar theories of evolution. They actually did, but they weren't atheists. In fact, furthest thing from atheism, because one of the features of Islamic theology and the Islamic way of argument for the existence of Allah is to go through the lens of contingency, dependency, because what the biggest mistake of the philosophers from the Greeks till now is to give essential powers to the things of this universe, to contingent things, right? To think that things by themselves cause their existence. Things by themselves are sustaining their own existence. Okay? This is what we call the belief in naturalism. Naturalism. Okay? So a tree, by its very nature, essentially does XYZ, right? But we say no, again, through the lens of contingency. Wait a minute. A tree, at any given moment, there are infinite possibilities, right? There are infinite possibilities just from our reason at any given moment. And also, we just said the tree didn't exist at one time. Now it exists. The question always is, رجحان الشيء بلا مرجح مستحيل. Who is the one or what thing is preferring this thing over another? What is giving existence to this possibility and not the other possibility? You see? And then we go back into the two problems that I just mentioned. If you believe in the efficacy of causes, then you go into tasalsul, you go into infinite regress. You say, this thing, it's water, it's this, it's atoms, and you go back to the Big Bang. Okay? And then you're stuck, right?
Yeah.
But then the philosophers of old, they wouldn't be stuck, right? Because they believed in an eternal universe. Okay? So they affirmed tasalsul. They affirmed infinite regress, that there's an infinite regress of causes, right? But we just said that that is impossible, that there's something very difficult to accept there, right? From the standpoint of contingency. So does that make sense? So if you go through the lens of contingency, what was the other thing you mentioned? Evolution and what else?
I think that was my main thing. Talk
Yeah, yeah,
about
yeah.
evolution, yeah.
And really evolution is the really the to me, like I don't spend my mind thinking about evolution. Like
Yeah.
that's one of the dumbest issues, really, wallahi, right? Because because you have to believe in the essential like efficacy of nature. Okay? In order for like it can't ever be somehow. Like how do you know it can't be somehow? Like how is that scientific? Is you're just observing a pattern in nature and now you're saying it does it by itself, right? It does it by itself. For example, um I see Omar get up at 7 a.m. He walks out his door. He goes to his mailbox. The next day, I see, let's say he just, a new neighbor, he moved in next to me. The next day that I see Omar, he does the exact same thing. The third day, Omar, he leaves his house, 7 a.m., right on the clock, goes to his mailbox. I keep observing this for the next 10 years. I mean, I'm a very nosy neighbor, right? Now, at one point, I say, you know what? This is just how Omar is. He will never ever change. This is just what he does. It's impossible that he does something different. Am I right?
Yeah.
No, no, I'm not right. How am I right?
Oh, no,
Is
no,
it
I mean, like
possible that?
you're being a nosy neighbor, that's the conclusion you make.
Yeah, yeah, that's the conclusion. But is the conclusion correct? That
Oh, no,
it's
no, it wouldn't
impossible
be.
for him to do anything else?
It wouldn't be, no.
Yeah, I mean, maybe one day his dog died or something, and he doesn't come out. So all of science is observing patterns in nature, right? We're going to discuss this in the second module more in depth. But what ends up happening is that scientists make these patterns necessary. They make these patterns necessary. We just said something which is dependent in this way can't be necessary because they were there, they weren't there at a certain point, now they're there, right?
Hmm.
They're at a certain location, they have a certain fixed time, they have a certain amount of matter assigned to them, they're changing all the time, right? So it's impossible that they're necessary. That defeats the purpose of what necessary means. Something that's necessary is always there, right?
Right.
Something that's
Yeah.
necessary is not dependent on any of these things. So same thing with the laws of physics and the laws of nature and the like, right? Contingency is a window that it makes all of these things clear. Now, is it possible that human beings evolved from monkeys or whatever? Like, is it logically possible? Sure. Sure, why not? Right? Why don't I believe this? Because we have a better evidence. We have revelation. right? That tells us that human beings are a unique creation. So maybe other things have certain relationships, whatever it may be, but that shouldn't affect the existence of God. Okay? What ended up happening is in the Western world, during the Enlightenment, people started to lose the idea of contingency. And they believed that the universe was a giant machine. This is where Newton came in, right? The universe was like a giant machine. And what ended up happening is when Charles Darwin discovered the theory of evolution, I mean, it's not really, he didn't really give a lot of detail on it, but it showed to people in the West that the Earth and the universe was ancient. Okay? They're millions and millions of years, billions of years, right? Before human beings came onto the scene. And it made them feel very small, right? And because they believed that the universe was like a machine, things are like a clock. They just work by themselves, okay? There's a God that created, the universe and sort of just left it to run by itself, okay? So, yes, they believed in a God, but that God's relevance faded away. Okay? It didn't matter that the God was there because the God created a clock and it's just running by itself. And so there's been billions of years before human beings came onto the scene. Things, adapt over time, and it's just we're living here in nature, okay? With all of these necessary laws, right? We sustain our own existence. That's the power that God gave us, right? And it's our job to figure out our life in this world. You see where that idea came from? It came from this idea that the universe was like a machine, all right? And that's why people their faith was affected by evolution. And also because a lot of evolution, it contradicts the Bible, right? It contradicts the Bible and the age of the universe. Okay? When the science of geology was perfected, they were able to date these rocks for, millions of years ago, like places in Scotland, they were finding dinosaur bones and things like this. And it shook people's faith in the Bible because the Bible tells us how old is the earth? Does anyone know?
'Is it like
6,000?
6 or 10,000?
Yep. And there's a group of people that still believe that. Okay. Not in the US. Where do you think people believe that? It's a little weird. You would not expect it. They're causing some havoc in the Middle East today. Anyone? Any wild guesses?
Israel?
Israel. The Messianic Jewish movement of the Zionists, they believe that too, right?
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, and you can see in a very, I think the Jewish calendar starts from the time of creation, so it's 6,000 something and some change, right? And we're in the year 5,800 something. So we only have about 200 years or something to go before, the day of judgment. Okay, this is from the Zionist belief. And you can actually see there's an interview, not an interview, but there's a meeting between Netanyahu and Rabbi Schneerson. Rabbi Schneerson. He was like the biggest Zionist rabbi of the world at the time. Okay. And he was like, taking blessings from all these, like high profile investment bankers, world leaders. This was at the UN. Okay. This was a long time ago. I think 1980s or something. You could still find the video online. And, he's telling Netanyahu, like, Hashem is saying that Hashem is the way that they call God, right? So that the time is approaching. The time is approaching. We only have 200 years. Like, what are you doing to get the Messiah? What are you doing to get, make the Messiah come faster? And then Netanyahu says, like, we're trying our best. Okay? So he's saying 200 years only. Okay? Because they believe in this calendar, the 6,000-year-old calendar. Okay? Muslims we're agnostic to this. Okay. Is the world 6,000 years old? Um, could be, could not. It doesn't really matter to me, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, there's a long period of time, right? هل أتى على الإنسان حين من الدهر لم يكن شيئا مذكورا. don't human beings know that there was a long stretch of time where even the word human was never mentioned before? That human beings, there was no speck of existence of any human beings. So the Quran is open to a lot of possibilities. Okay. And from the way that the Quran talks about Allah, I mean, human beings, yes, they're the stars of the show, but they're not the only objects on the stage. They're not the only people on the stage, right? So that makes sense to everyone? So a combination of the age of the universe, the combination of seeing the universe as a machine, the combination of their shaken belief in Christianity, all these things contributed to evolution coming in and now landing the final blow. And what always puzzles me about Muslims is that they take on the exact same issues with Islam, right? They take on the exact same pattern as the Westerners did. And the reason is because they don't know their own theology. That's reason number one. Okay? Because they do not know their own theology. Okay? So that's the biggest issue. All right? All right. So let's talk about circular reasoning. Ad-dawr. If you believe that everything in the universe is contingent, here's a big problem. And the problem is that you're saying A is contingent, B is contingent. Okay? So A depends on its existence from B. B has to provide A existence. Okay? A doesn't get existence by itself. Okay, it needs B to exist. Okay, good. So right now, A doesn't exist. Yes or no? A needs B to exist in order to get existence, correct? So right now, A doesn't exist. Okay? But B also depends on its existence on A. So right now, B doesn't exist. Wait a minute. This is a big problem now. Okay? If we believe in circular reasoning, if we say that the things of this universe, there's an infinite number of things, they all depend on each other. They all depend on each other. Kumbaya, right? Kumbaya. They all depend on each other. Love is what moves the universe, whatever it may be, all those things. They all each depend on each other. Okay? So A needs B to exist for it to exist. Yes? But B needs A to exist for it to exist. So what's the conclusion? Nothing exists. Because if A needs B to exist and B needs A to exist, one of these has to exist first in order to give existence to the other. But we said that they don't have the power to, they need the power of existence from outside, right? So this is why circular reasoning, a dawr is impossible. Okay? Circular reasoning, a dawr is impossible. All right. Whoops. And for example, here's another example that's really funny. I like to give. Um, Imagine that you're applying to college. Okay, you're applying to college, and in order to get into this college, you need a certificate. Okay, you need a certificate for your transcript. So here's your high school. Okay, here's your high school. Here's the municipal building. Okay, let's call it the municipal building. Okay. Um, and here's your high school. So your university tells you, okay, you need to get me a transcript when you graduated. Okay, so you go to your high school. You say, I need my transcript. So your high school says, well, you took a gap year, whatever it may be. Now the people that handle your transcript, they're the municipal building. You have to go there and get it. I'm just making an example up, okay? So you go to the municipal building, and when you talk with the person, they say, well, the state law requires that you have to get the um, transcript from the high school. So you go back to the high school, and then the high school person says, well, you haven't been here for a long time. You have to go back to the municipal building. They should have it with there. And so you go back to the municipal building, okay? And they say, well, we don't really have it here. You have to go to the high school. Can you do this infinitely? Like, will you ever get your transcript?
No.
No, exactly. Okay. So at-tasalsul and ad-dawr, they are both impossible. At-tasalsul and dawr are both impossible. So if you believe that all of the things in the universe are contingent, they're dependent. Okay, they're dependent on a location, they're dependent on time, they're dependent on matter, they're dependent on change. Okay, these are all choices that something or someone has to make. Okay, and all these things, they didn't exist at one time, now they exist. Okay, they're all dependent. So if you believe every single thing in the universe is dependent, yes, then it leads to two impossibilities, tasalsul or dawr. Okay, and both of these possibilities means what? That nothing could exist. Nothing could exist. Okay, so if your idea was true, nothing could exist. But things do exist. Yes, true or false? Things do exist. So the only conclusion that we have is that there has to be some type of existence, some type of thing, being, whatever you want to call it, that is necessary. That is necessary means that that being has to have the power to give existence essentially. Essentially. And that thing, that being, could not have not existed. It has always existed. Okay? It has always existed. It's not contingent. Okay? It's necessary. So the the way that to look at it is that this is the wall that keeps all these other blocks from falling. Okay? And because this essentially has the power to give existence, all of these other things can exist. Okay? And if you remove that wall, everything falls. All right? That's a pretty cool animation, right? You guys like that? Thumbs up, anyone? Anyway, yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Zaid. Okay, so there has to be a necessary existent. There has to be a necessary existent. And based on what we just talked about, that necessary existent has to have the ability to give existence, and it essentially has existence with itself, meaning there was never a time when it didn't exist. There was never a time when it didn't exist. Okay, in fact, it is outside the whole scope of time, of location, of matter, and of change. You guys get it? It cannot be affected by the qualities of contingent objects because it creates those contingent objects. It is the one who specifies location, time, matter, change, all those things. It is the one. So you guys got it, right? So this is the argument from contingency, that there can never ever be only contingent things. Every contingent thing requires necessary being to exist. This is the argument from contingency. Every contingent object or thing or creation, everything that didn't exist at one point and now exists, it requires a necessary being to make it exist. Okay? And we're not saying that this being is supernatural. Okay? Well, that's not what we're saying. We're not saying, oh, the universe, like I observe that, like someone broke the window. So there has to be a cause for the window to be broken. Okay, so and then you find a ball. Just like that, I observed the universe began to exist and now, now it's existing. So there has to be some supernatural cause. No, that's not what we're saying. Okay, we're saying anything which has the ability to be different, it's dependent. What does that mean? Dependent? It has the ability to be different. There could have been a different possibility, right? There could have been a different possibility. Okay? Every single one of those things, it requires a necessary being. Necessary being. Okay, so even if there were 6 million gazillion universes, okay, does that negate the possibility of the existence of God? Let's say a giant
No,
space monster created this universe. Na'udhu billah. And so what is the would this negate the possibility of the existence of God?
no,
Why not?
because something has to create that giant.
Correct. A
Yeah,
giant space monster is a contingent being.
right.
Is a contingent being. As long as there are contingent beings, there has to be a necessary being. Must. So the argument from necessity is 10 times, a million times stronger. In fact, it is the strongest argument, logical argument for the existence of God, right? And we're not just talking about necessity in the past, we're talking about right here, right now, right? The cup of coffee, your body, your existence right now, it could not last the next second, it could not last the next instant without the aun, without the help, and without the succor of the necessary being, who's providing you with existence every moment of existence. Okay? So this is the, and we already talked about circular reasoning, right? And again, this is just a graphic to show you guys, right? If every single thing in the universe, you said that every tiny thing in the universe is dependent on itself, you would get circular reasoning. Okay? So you need to escape this level and you have to go to the necessary being. Okay, let's see what we have. So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Okay, captured in this small ayah is actually the proof of contingency. Okay, Alameen, Alam, okay, Alam is something to distinguish things by. So if I say Ismail, Ismail is Ismul Alam. It's Ismul Alam. It's a name that is an Alam, meaning it's something to distinguish him by. So I can't say uh, Bengali. Like, would that distinguish him?
Oh no.
No, there's there's God knows how many million bazillion Bengalis, right? All over the world. Uh, I can't say Bostonian. That wouldn't distinguish him. I can't say I don't know, like what? Student of Sheikh Yasser. I mean that there's thousands of people, right? It wouldn't distinguish him. When I say Ismail, it distinguishes him. Okay, it's very specific. So this is an Ismul Alam. Okay, when Allah says He's Rabbul Alameen, He's Rabb of all the things that are specifically distinguished. Okay, and right here is the concept of contingency. Okay, because remember, we said rujhanu shay'i, right? Preferring something over another possibility is impossible without a preferrer. Okay, Allah's the one who made them alameen. He made them distinguished, each into different types of things. Okay, so and then the Rabb, this is where we get the idea of change. Okay, you cannot be a Rabb if you're not constantly what? Tadbir. You're not constantly sustaining something. Okay? So this gives us the idea that all of creation is constantly being sustained. It's constantly changing into different states and being constantly sustained. All right? Okay. So now let's read what Said Nursi has to say on this argument. He takes it from a different perspective. He takes it from like a more Sufi, more spiritual perspective. He was a brilliant logician, brilliant theologian, like scientist too, right? But what he ended up doing is he took the spiritual path because he wanted to speak to the regular people, right? So who wants to read this? Anyone?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
If we look, we see that all things, and especially living creatures, have numerous different needs and numerous different wants. And those wants and needs are provided for them at the appropriate time in unexpected ways from places they do not know and their hands cannot reach. Succor comes to them,
Hmm.
but the power of those needy beings is insufficient for even the smallest of those endless things they wish for. They cannot meet their needs. Consider yourself. Of how many things are you in need of that your hands cannot reach, like your external and inner senses and their needs? Compare all other living creatures with yourself. See, just as singly they testify to the necessary existence and point to his unity, so in their totality they show to man's reason a necessarily existent one behind the veil of the unseen, a single one of unity, among titles of most generous, all compassionate, nurturer and disposer. O ignorant unbeliever and dissolute, heedless one, with what can you explain this wise, percipient, compassionate activity? Deaf nature, blind force, senseless chance? Can you explain it through impotent, lifeless causes?
Yeah, so there's a very beautiful take on the argument from contingency. What Said Nursi is asking us here is this is a Hijazi argument. Remember we talked about it last time, right? That Said Nursi usually makes Hijazi arguments because he's talking with regular people. What we just talked about is a very logical, strict, demonstration. Okay, something that's contingent. It did not exist before. Now it comes into existence. It requires specification and rujhanu shay bila murajjih, something that is preferred over another possibility cannot happen except with a murajjih. So there must be a necessary being that is preferring these possibilities. Okay, so that was a strict logical demonstration. But here, he's taking this argument and he's making it close to home. Okay, he's bringing it close to home. And he's saying, look at yourself and look at the living creatures. Okay, they have numerous different needs and numerous different wants. They're in constant need every second. And those needs and wants are provided for them at the appropriate time in unexpected ways from places they do not know and their hands cannot reach. I'll give you a small example. You find pleasure by looking at a flower, a beautiful flower, and you feel refreshed. You're in a nice garden, you look at a nice flower, right? You look at these beautiful plants, the sun, the birds singing, whatever it may be. The question is, like, you think that this activity, this is fulfilling a need that you have, okay? And now you go and ask the flower, how does the flower know that this is something that's pleasing to me? Is the flower giving you that pleasure, right? Are the birds giving you that pleasure? Is the sun, the air, whatever it may be giving you that pleasure? If that's the truth, right? Those are the things that are giving you that pleasure. Do they know what you need and what you want? The answer is no.
No.
They don't. Now, if you say, they're not the ones giving me that pleasure, I'm giving myself pleasure. Okay, fine. Why are you in the garden then? Okay? Wherever you are in the world, you can always somehow get the same feeling all the time. All right? Now, here is but you can't. You can't, right? Because you can't generate this. So we have to ask ourselves when we're looking at the flower, who or what is actually making this feeling of relaxation or mercy or beauty in my heart? It's not the flower. There has to be a single one of unity who, like, if you look at a play, there are all these different elements on the stage of a play. And that all those elements are arranged in a way to send you a message. True or false, right? If you look at those individual elements, let's say you're looking at a play like a Shakespeare play or a movie or whatever it may be, and you just focus in on, I don't know, like the actor's cell phone charger. I mean, are you gonna really get a message? No. If you look at the movie, how all the items are arranged, they're all there to send you a message. Okay? That you're in need of something, and then that place sending you a message. The same thing with all of existence. The same thing with all of existence. That a single one of unity, that who's all compassionate, who's all nurturer, he's a Rabb, who's the necessary existent, that he uses these things to send you a message. That he's using these things to fulfill your needs in the appropriate time in unexpected ways from places that your hands cannot reach, right? So all of existence is needy, right? And that's why he says deaf nature. Nature, the word nature is just a word. It's simply a word. It doesn't refer to anything in the external world. What's actually in the external world are trees, water, right? Sun, rain, animals. These are there. But the idea of nature is not there. Okay? Blind forces. You said gravity is such a beautiful thing. What is gravity, right? It's simply a action of the necessary existence. It's how the necessary existence has set up the world, right? Senseless chance. We didn't talk about this possibility, but whatever we don't understand, human beings call it random. Human beings call it chance. There's no such thing as chance. It doesn't refer to something in the external world. Okay? If you point to me, right? If you just give me something that shows randomness, like anyone, can somebody give me something that shows randomness just off the top of your mind?
Lottery.
Good, lottery, right? So you give out all these different things, and then they, what is it? They pick a number. They do the wheel and pick a number, right? So from the external, it looks random, okay? But actually, what you're referring to is that the person that's going to pick the ticket, he does not know which ticket he's going to pick. So randomness always goes back to an ignorance of knowledge. Goes back to an ignorance of knowledge. If you knew how to set up all of the variables, it would not be random. But because you don't set up all of the variables, you have ignorance, and so you call this event that you cannot explain random. Okay? So there cannot be any randomness that you can point to in actual real existence. Okay? So there must be a necessary existent that point to his unity. So in their totality, they show to man's reason a necessarily existent one behind the veil of the unseen. Now, we find this type of argument also in the Quran. Okay? Also in the Quran. And we find this with the one who made this argument in the best way is Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim alayhi salam. First he made it with Namrud, then he made it first he made it with his people, then he made it with Namrud. And let's read what Said Nursi has to say about these famous verses, where the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, he takes his people out. Okay, he's challenging his people who worship, idols and who worship the planets and things like this, and he's trying to show them something. He's trying to show them something. So he goes outside. He says, "Look, this is my Lord." So what Ibrahim alayhi salam is doing, again, Hijaji argument. In a Hijaji argument, sometimes you will take the premise of the opponent. You'll say, okay, you're right. You're right. Let's say that you're right. Okay, so Ibrahim Islam saying, okay, this is my Lord. He doesn't actually believe that. Okay, so he's pointing at the star and he's saying, yes, Hada Rabbi. Okay, and then the star sets. Okay, what does this show? The star disappears. What does this show? Remember, existence. I mean, the star doesn't literally disappear, but it disappears from the sky. Okay, but what Ibrahim Hassan, the point he's trying to make is the change. There's a state of change. At one point, the star had a state of brightness. Okay, at another point, the star is now gone from the sky. There's a change. Non-existence to existence, existence to non-existence. So the star must be what? Everything that has this quality, these qualities, has to be what? What did we say the word was? The C word?
Contingent.
Contingent. It has to be contingent. So he says, it can't be my Lord. I do not like the things that set. فَلَمَّا أَفَلَ قَالَ لَا أُحِبُّ الْآفِلِينَ. I don't like the things that set. And he's trying to make this case to his people that, look, you can't worship these things. They can't do anything for you because they themselves are contingent. Okay? So look at what Said Nursi has to say, commenting on this verse. So anyone want to read? Or else I'm going to pick Omar again. Anyone? Ismail, you want to read?
Yes, I can read.
Okay, go ahead.
Bismillah. A beloved who is hidden through setting is not beautiful, for those doomed to decline cannot be truly beautiful. They are not to be loved with the heart, which is created for eternal love and is the mirror of the Eternal One. You are fooled by one who is doomed to be lost through sitting. Such such a one is worthy of neither the heart's attachment nor the mind's preoccupation. He is not the object of desires. He is not worthy of being regretted with the sorrow and grief that follows. So why should the heart worship and be bound to him? As for one who is sought but then lost in time, I do not want such a one, for I too am passing, and do not want one who is the same as me. What should I do? A loved one that is buried in death, how can I seek refuge in him? For I am infinitely needy myself. So how can someone similarly needy find a cure for my boundless ills? I have eternal wounds. How can one who cannot save himself from death heal me? My reason, obsessed with externals, cries out in desperation at seeing the deaths of the things it worships in the universe. My spirit, which seeks for an eternal beloved, utters the cry, I love not those that set. I love not those that set. I do not want separation. I do not desire separation. I cannot handle separation. Meetings followed immediately by separation are not worth sorrow nor longing. For just as passing of pleasure is pain, imagining its passing is so pain. If you if you were
If you were to
if
hear
you
the
were if you were to hear the spirit of all poetry, from each would flow these grievous cries. So it is due to the pain and heart of those meetings stained with separation, those sorrowful metaphorical loves, that my heart weeps and cries. I love not those that set.
I love not those that said, right? فَلَمَّا أَفَلَ قَالَ لَا أُحِبُّ الْآفِلِينَ. This is Ibrahim alayhi salam, right? Telling his people, right? I love not those that said. And Said Nursi, he makes a very beautiful argument. I mean, this is not a like a theological treatise. This is a letter, right? Said Nursi's this is a letter that he sent while he was in exile, and basically all of his friends, family, like he couldn't access any of them, and he was just sort of stuck on this in this enclave, and yeah, that's it basically. I mean, they just sent him there to basically, you know, die. Uh, so while he was there, this is, you know, he somehow sneaked out a letter, and in one of these letters, this is something that he wrote, right? Where the beauty of the Quran came to it came to his aid, okay, and it helped him during this time. So he's saying that the things of the world that people worship, they're constantly setting, they're constantly going away because they are contingent themselves, right? Whether you worship causes, whether you worship a celebrity, whether you worship money, whatever it may be, okay? These things, it does not deserve eternal love because the heart has been created for eternal love, right? And most of us feel this, right? People might call us idealistic, whatever it is. What we want is we want eternal things. Whatever we want. You know, if you look at the most powerful people in the world, what do they want? They want eternal power. That's what they want. They want the things that they have, they want it for eternity, right? And they get this way because the human being has been created for eternity, right? But it's important for us to recognize that nothing in this dunya can be eternal in that sense because every single thing is contingent, it's dependent, right? A loved one that is buried in death. Okay? Doesn't mean that we shouldn't mourn for the people that we love or we can't love anything in this dunya. No, that it doesn't mean that. But we love those things because they are a reflection of the eternally necessary being, right? We love those things because they're a reflection of the eternal being. For example, your mom makes you a birthday cake, okay? Or your mom, you know, in the olden days, they would sew like clothes for you, right? So your mom like sewed like a very nice shirt for you, okay? And then, subhanallah, she grows old and she passes away. Now, you really, really love this shirt. Why do you love that shirt? I mean, it's probably not good quality, right? It's actually, things made back then are pretty good quality, right? But it's probably, out of fashion. It's probably too small for you to wear now. It's probably, you have it downstairs in the basement somewhere. You probably don't wear it, but you don't want to get rid of it. Why don't you want to get rid of it? Anyone?
Sentimental value.
It has a sentimental value. It's attached to your mother. So the meaning of the shirt, the shirt that really doesn't have any utility in the physical world suddenly has a tremendous amount of utility because of its attachment to your mother, the one that you love, right? So in the same way, all of the things of existence, it's exactly the same, right? They only take their value because of their association with the eternal necessary being, because of Allah, right? Allah, the love that you feel in your heart towards your mother is created by Allah. Okay? So you love your mother because she is a reflection of Allah's mercy to you. Okay? It's one of the asbab, the sabab, one of the veils in which Allah shows His mercy to you. Maybe your mother wasn't merciful. Okay, maybe there's a teacher that was merciful to you. Or maybe there was a person who was generous to you. All of these things, you value them and you recognize them and you thank them and you love them because they are veils of Allah's generosity towards you. Okay? So, but Nursi says that every single thing in existence, it has two faces. One, if you look at it through one face, it has no meaning, right? But if you look at it through the other face, it has all the meaning. Okay? If you look at a thing by itself, just as itself, it has no meaning because it can't sustain its own existence. It means nothing. But if you take a look at it in its relationship to its creator, okay, then suddenly it has tremendous amount of value. Just like the example of the shirt. Just if you look at the shirt by itself, some other person that, doesn't know your mother or whatever it may be, he looks at this, is like, this is trash. You just throw it away. How many times have we done that with so many different things? Okay? Like we buy something secondhand and we use it, we just throw it away, right? But look, you don't have that, you're not looking at it, you're just looking at the object itself. But for somebody else, that object has tremendous, tremendous value. Same way as all of existence, it has tremendous value because of its relationship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the standpoint of the creator of this creation. Okay? So that's the argument from contingency. Next time we'll go through the argument from the human fitra, okay, which is it's not similar, but it's different. And then we're gonna talk about the attributes of Allah. So any questions? It wasn't complicated, right? It was easy to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Thumbs up. Okay.
Yep.
Any questions? Anyone? Going once, going twice. Okay. With that, inshallah, we'll end for today. We're right on time, 12:29. I'll see you next week, inshallah. We'll discuss a couple other things related to this.
Inshallah.
Okay.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Wa alaikum
Wa
assalam.
alaikum
The rest of the day, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah. Stay safe, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.